Section 3.5, Solving Inequalities Using Multiplication and Division. Rules for solving inequalities using multiplication and division are: Step 1, solve using inverse operations just as you did with equations. Step 2, work must be shown on both sides of the inequality and a graph of your solution should be included. Step 3, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must reverse or flip the inequality or flip the sign. Examples: solve and graph. Letter A. M divided by a -3 is greater than or equal to 3. You will notice that you are dividing by a -3, and because it's going to be that you are multiplying times a -3, you need to switch the sign. So it will no longer be greater than or equal to, it will be less than or equal to. The -3's will then cancel out and leave you with just M. Then you have a +3 times a -3. A positive times a negative is a negative. And 3 times 3 is 9. Your answer is M is less than or equal to -9. Then you draw your number line, put your 0 on it, and your -9. Because it is less than or equal to, the circle is going to be colored in and shaded in. Then you go in the direction of less than, which is to the left. Your answer will be a closed circle on -9 and an arrow to the left. Letter B. N divided by 2 is less than -1. You need to do the opposite or inverse of dividing by 2. So you multiply times a 2 on both sides. That cancels out the 2 and leaves you with N is less than a -1 times a +2 is a -2. Your answer is N is less than -2. Now draw your number line, the 0 and a -2. Draw your circle at the -2. It is only less than, so it stays an open circle, and it goes in the direction of less than, which is to the left. Your answer is an open circle at -2 with an arrow to the left. Letter C. -8n is less than or equal to 32. You should notice that you are multiplying times a -8 and will need to divide by a -8. And because it is negative, your sign is going to change. It will no longer be less than or equal to, it will be greater than or equal to. When you divide by -8, it leaves you with an N. Then you have a positive divided by a negative, and that's a negative, and 32 divided by 8 is 4. Your answer is N is greater than or equal to -4. Now you draw your number sign. You put your 0 on it and your -4. You will draw a circle at the -4, and because it's greater than or equal to, it will be a closed circle. Then you do greater than, and that direction is to the right. So your answer will be a closed circle at -4 with an arrow to the right. Letter D, 2x is greater than -8. You have 2 times x, so you will need to divide by 2 to get rid of the 2. And that will leave x is greater than. You have a negative divided by a positive, that's a negative, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Your answer is x is greater than -4. Now you draw your number line, your 0, the -4. Put your circle at the -4, and because it is only greater than, it stays open and the direction is to the right. You will have an open circle at -4 and with an arrow going to the right. Now let's check out some examples. You only need to answer if you flip the sign or no flip of the sign. You do not need to solve them. -6n is less than 12. Do you flip or not flip it? Because you would be dividing by a -6, you need to flip. You flip because you would be dividing by a negative number. Letter B. N divided by 3 is greater than or equal to -5. Would you flip it or no flip? You're dividing by a 3, which means you would need to multiply by a 3, and they are positive, so it is no flip. Even though the 5 is negative in the constant side, that does not count when you're looking at flipping or not flipping. You only look at when you're trying to get rid of a number that's with the variable. Letter C. 4n is greater than -6. Do you flip or no flip? You have a positive 4 times your variable, which means you would be dividing by a positive 4. It's positive, so you have no flip. Letter D. -3y is less than -9. Do you flip or no flip? You have a -3 that is with the variable, which means you would be dividing by a -3. It's negative, so it means you need to flip. It would change from a less than sign to a greater than sign. Give these a try. Solve and graph. Number 1. -12n is greater than -36. You need to get rid of the -12 by dividing by -12. Because it's negative, that means you need to flip the sign. It will no longer be greater than, it will be less than. You will cancel out the -12 and leave just n. Then you have a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive, and 36 divided by 12 is 3. Your answer is n is less than 3. Then you draw your number line, your 0, and your 3. Because it's only less than, it stays as an open circle, and less than goes to the left. You will have an open circle at 3 with an arrow to the left. Number 2, x divided by -8 is less than or equal to 1. Since you are dividing by a -8, that means you will have to multiply times a -8, and because it's negative, that means you need to flip your sign. It will no longer be less than or equal to, it will be greater than or equal to. We will cancel out the -8 and leave just x. Then you have a positive times a negative is a negative, and 1 times 8 is 8. Your answer would be x is greater than or equal to -8. Now you draw your number line, your 0, and your -8. You'll put a circle at the -8 because it is greater than or equal to. You will color it in and make it a closed circle. Then greater than goes to the right. So your answer will be a closed circle at -8 with an arrow to the right. Number 3, -45 is greater than 9c. First, think about that you have the variable on the right-hand side. We will eventually need to switch that. But let's look at getting rid of the 9 that's with the c. You'll need to divide by 9 on both sides, and because it's positive, we're going to keep the sign the same for now. That will cancel out the 9 and leave just c. We'll keep our greater than sign, and then we have a negative divided by a positive, and that's a negative. We have 45 divided by 9, and that is 5. So your answer is -5 is greater than c. However, remember, we like to write c on the left-hand side, and it's at this point of the sign. So the point of the sign would be with the c, which would mean the greater than flips over to a less than, and c is less than -5. This makes it easier to graph. Now we put our number line, our 0, and the -5. The circle will go at the -5. It is only less than, so it stays open. Then our arrow goes to the left. You will have an open circle at -5 and the arrow to the left.